rich men versus poor men on middle ground. So I guess they just got a bunch of rich people and poor people, and they're just going to argue about which one's worse and which one's better. And we're probably going to get a little bit of a perspective on both, and we'll kind of see which one's clownery and which one's not. And they're probably both clownery because, in my experience, Jubilee is just two sides of the same coin arguing about stuff and being clowns.
So the thing is, if people actually research credit and learn how to build it properly, it's easy to get money. And the cool thing about credit is, if you invest and you fuck up, you could just let it go to collections and dispute it all off anyway.
Yeah,
That's
someone that
really
suffers
terrible
with that
advice.
system, so.
I was making
Don't
money
do
and I was
that.
paying my bill every single month. So I wasn't just buying like Beats by Dre or dumb
But where
shit.
did it go wrong? Because, I
So-
mean, with respect,
Oh, yeah,
you're
I'm-
on the
I'ma
other
tell you.
side now.
Don't buy investments with debt. The average stock market, and I'm not an investment financial guidance person at all. I don't take my advice because I'm just an idiot on the internet. But I just want to put this out there. If you are taking out something on credit, and the interest rate is 30%, which is a normal interest rate for a credit card, and you use that to buy an investment, the S&P 500 and VOO and all these index funds that are portfolios of all these giant companies bundled into one to mitigate risk. Average return, good return, 10%. So the math is off there. You'll be losing money unless you're investing in risky stuff. And I bet that's what happened to him is he invested it into risky stuff trying to beat that percentage of 30%. And he screwed up. And he lost because that's what people do when they do that. They lose. Unless you're
Step
insider
four,
trading.
If you've made less than 1K in 2024.
Less than 1K.
Less than 10K in 2024.
10K is hard to do less than.
40K in 2024.
That's realistic.
Less than 60K in 2024.
Okay. Less than 60, 50K is not bad.
300K in 2024.
Oh, they're balling.
Less than 600K in 2024.
300 to 600K. That guy's in tech for sure.
Less than 5 million in
I don't know.
2024.
We just finished that.
Less than 9 million in 2024.
They're clapping for him because he's rich.
We're clapping for the rich guy?
Rich people should be taxed more.
I think everybody should be taxed evenly, straight across the board.
I remember back when America was first starting, and the taxes were looked at as a privilege. Like it was something that people looked forward to. People, use it as a badge of honor that they had made it to a point where they could use their success to benefit the
But
rest of
taxes
society.
used to be a
It was
lot
something that used
less.
as, like,
They
a
weren't
stamp
like
of, "I've
20% of
made it,
your
I've done
income,
my part,
18% of
I've
your
become
income."
so successful that now I can give back at such an extraordinary level. Now this is also dependent on taxes being used, in the correct way to like actually benefit society and not, go to corrupt politicians. But
They were lower
overall,
and they did more.
especially as someone who's considered like upper middle
Yeah,
class, rich,
love that.
someone who's considered wealthy, I have no problem and think that I should be taxed higher. I purposely don't take advantage of tax loopholes that I could, even though it'd be very easy to, because I would rather that money instead of
That's real
being
privilege
saved
right
and going
there.
directly to myself.
That's real
I'd rather go
privilege.
to fund school systems and other institutions
He's
that
so
can't get
rich,
funding
he
other
wants to give
ways.
his money away.
Government is, captured by special interest lobby groups that lobby on behalf of their constituents, corporations, and they write the tax code. And the tax code is written in a way that benefits corporations and it disadvantages working class people. And
Pay to win,
the very
babe.
fact that you can tax an income, for
Pay to
instance,
win.
and not tax what they call unrealized gains is a great injustice in our society.
But then
So
you can take
yes.
a loan against it and then
Yeah,
profit
and
from the loan.
exactly, right.
Then it's
Yeah, you
cycles.
can buy Twitter off of your, with a leverage buyout by using your unrealized gains as collateral. But when it comes time to tax those unrealized gains, oh, sorry, they're unrealized. You don't have it. It's not actually materially a part of it.
Exactly.
So don't know that I'm on board with the
You
taxing.
don't make money or lose money until you sell your asset. It's just how it works. Unrealized gains, which means that they're potential gains. But until you pull them, so it's like I can take a loan out on the title of my car, and I can spend that money and pay the loan back. But the car isn't actually worth any money until I sell it. So that makes absolute sense. Until I sell that car, it's not worth anything. Until I sell that asset, it's not worth anything. And I believe if you take a loan out on your asset, that you can't just get rid of the asset or the loan becomes due, but I'm not a financial guy. So I don't really know the answer to that question.
Unrealized gains. But the big thing that had me walking out here is you constantly
I
see that,
deserve
like,
love.
millionaires, etc.
That's very
they
sweet
pay
of
a
you,
lower
but you're
marginal
probably
tax
wrong.
rate than like teachers and stuff. And that is like the biggest thing to me that like never quite made sense. Like if we're all kind of in this system together, why are we not at least all paying the same percentage of our?
Because we're not in this system together. It's two tiered. You know, there's a separate separate rules for the rich as there are.
Yeah, but that's the thing is if it was an even amount for everybody, if it was just like a flat 10% for everybody, if you made $1 million, you'd be paying 10% of your money is going to them. If you made $1, 10% is going to them. Like, I don't see what the problem is here.
For the
I really
poor,
don't.
And you know, the rich play by a different game. You know.
Okay, let's invite the disagreeers.
That's okay.
The reason why I didn't step forward, which was, should rich people pay more taxes? If I could know with certainty that my taxes, paying more of them, would go to benefit schools or homeless veterans or, you know, struggling single moms or, you know, whatever the causes are, I'd be glad to. My concern is that once that money's gone, it can go off to fund war crimes in other countries and bomb villages to take their oil and all this other bullshit. And when I keep more of my money, like there's a school maybe like 12 minutes from my house where I paid all the lunch debt for that school, you know, like, and that was fine for me to do, but had I not had that money to pay that lunch debt because it went to the government, I don't know if that would go to that school or if it's gonna go bomb some country, right? So that is my sort of like, this is the implication where I don't trust the US government to use the money in the same benevolent way that I might if I had more of it to then do what
It's a good
programs
point.
and the
Assuming that
passions
people
I
are
have
actually
to help
good people, though.
And the reason
like,
that
you
we
can't
don't
really...
trust the U.S. government, because I don't trust it either, is because of who controls the government. And who controls the government are capitalists. So it goes back to capitalism. It would be great for our money to be used to fund schools and all these programs, wonderful. But they're not. You're right. They're going to the weapons industry instead.
$10,000 hammers for
like,
the U.S. government's
a lot of people
military.
have is like the rich don't pay taxes at all. If you look at corporate like payroll tax, like that's like the taxes that we pay. By
Most
far, in
payroll
America-
taxes, like Social Security and Medicare, are evenly split between employers and employees, while employers alone pay a federal unemployment tax.
America, corporations pay the most taxes in payroll. That is like what, like for example, but it is coming from other people's checks. But
According to the Treasury Department, total payroll taxes accounted for 35% of tax revenue for fiscal year 2024. Meanwhile, individual income taxes made up 49%
into
of
their
federal
salary,
revenue.
right? We know that we're going to have to pay taxes on that. That's one thing to think about. I do think that the system is set up for the rich to just make way more money, especially with the unrealized gains, like leveraging that.
We like to say, like, we want everyone to pay the same percent, same stuff like that. But it's not like rich people, massive business owners use less government services. They are using these roads way more. They are using all these things so much more than the average person who just needs to drive to work. If you need 1 million trucks going places, like it wouldn't be unfair for these people to pay more because they use more, because they're bigger entities.
I think sometimes people are mad and they're angry about wealth inequality, and they think that like taxing people will solve wealth inequality, and like I think it might solve it on like a numbers basis, but I just don't know that that's the right thing.
Okay, so the money that the government
Without social
doesn't
programs.
receive by taxing billionaires and multinational corporations, they have to come up with the money still. So what do? They borrow it. They borrow it from corporations when they could have just taxed them. And when you borrow from billionaires and these large corporations, you then have to pay them interest. The government has to pay all this interest on the money that they should have just taxed them in the first place.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's why you have 30 trillion. I mean, the national debt is a scam in and of itself.
The other thing is, like, when companies aren't taxed, they're also reinvesting it, usually to make more money, which increases our GDP and reduces unemployment, I would imagine. Well, I don't really know that for sure.
Itself, the fact that people bring that up as a talking point is ludicrous.
Hey, before we go any further, we want to take a moment to say thanks so much to Straight Arrow News for powering the fact checks in this video. Straight Arrow News is an app and website that is on a mission to raise the bar on journalism in a time of media bias and mistrust. Their team of journalists believe that unbiased news should be the standard and not just the exception. So they report down the middle with facts, delivering news without bias, filter, or spin.
Everyone
Plus,
has bias.
their media mist tool allows you to
Everyone
discover
does.
news that's being underreported or not even reported at all by different sides of mainstream media. And that's why we're so happy to be partnering with Straight Arrow News. The work they're doing gives us a complete picture of the news straight from our phones and tablets with their app. Go to san.com/middleground or check the link in the description to check it out. By clicking that link, you're not just supporting this channel,
Do
you're
I
also
listen or do I
supporting a
just
group of
talk over
journalists that are
everything? I
raising
talk
the
over
bar on
everything.
news and focusing on serving you unbiased, straight facts. Thanks again to Straight Arrow News for partnering with us on this episode. Now, let's get into it.
Men should be the breadwinner of the family. Can the agreeers please step forward?
He said, okay, I guess
grew
I'll
up
go.
in a pretty traditional Muslim household, and
said,
it's
"I guess I'll
very
go."
common for like the man to kind of be the breadwinner, and like that's the tradition I grew up. So I have very strong beliefs in that. I do think that there are abstractions, like there are times where women are the breadwinners and vice versa, but I don't think
it
should-
matters.
Like for me, like the way that I've grown up, the way that my family's grown up for many years, many
I think that men typically are the breadwinners in relationships. I don't necessarily think they have to be. And I think that in a dual income household, it really doesn't matter because it all goes in the same pot. So who cares who's making more? You know?
generations, it's been a tradition that like the man is very responsible for taking care of his family and the financials of kind of this unit. And I don't plan on changing that, so it's something I just believe in. But that doesn't mean there's room for abstraction. People can switch it up, but yeah, that's what I believe.
Can the disagreeers please step forward?
He's about to get jumped by all these dudes.
The reason why I
Verbally.
disagreed is because I think you should just do whatever works for your relationship. In my relationship personally, yes, I'm the one who does the providing and the protecting, and that works great for us. But that doesn't mean it works well for everybody else. And I mean, if you're dating a boss lady who works in tech and she makes like 500 grand a year, like you don't need to stretch yourself out if you're like, you work in a factory making 36K.
So I agree with you 100%. I think you should do whatever works best for y'all relationship. But I notice now in modern dating, a lot of women have this expectation on, oh, the man should be doing this, and that.
He said, chat, why are we even
here? I don't
here?
necessarily like that because these
Y'all are
expectations
bored?
put you in
I don't
a
know.
weird position, especially if you feel like you're not really receiving much in return.
In my current relationship, I was so upfront with my partner. I said, I'm gonna be a teacher. I'm not gonna be able to be the sole provider. I wanna be a high school teacher, maybe a college teacher. That's my passion, that's what I wanna do, that's how I wanna give back to the world. And she said, I love that about you, that's one of my favorite things about you, and we're gonna make that work. I'm gonna work, she's gonna work.
That's cute.
And we gotta get through it somehow. It's really hard to survive in this capitalist society right now.
It is. I don't know how anybody can
with
afford to
having
have
just one
someone staying at
provider.
home.
I mean, I think
I don't know
everyone
how.
on this side of the room probably can if you're the rich man, but a lot of us, we need two incomes. It's just not possible for the man to be
I totally
the
agree.
sole provider, breadwinner.
The reason that I put the expectation on myself is because like I also expect other expectations of my wife, right? Like I'm not gonna marry a woman that's not gonna be able to take care of my children, right? Like I think that's one expectation that I have. And once again, this is not an arbitrary thing where it's like, it has to be this way or that way. It's just what I believe.
I think we all have our expectations in relationships, and as long as we communicate those with a partner and are super upfront with that, there's no problem.
I only disagree with the characterization of the premise that men should be the breadwinner, as if we should be conforming to traditional gender roles in this society.
Oh, here we go.
I think
Traditional
there's
gender
a term
roles,
that I
rabbit
learned
hole.
maybe last year.
I get
is,
what he means, but
financial
like, come on, man.
compatibility. And I think that's one thing that is really important in a relationship, because if you're, making a lot of money and your partner isn't really, and because I personally think that a relationship, both people should work, both people should be, just contributing. But if
Sometimes,
someone's making
like,
a lot more than the other one, then it,
someone stays
will
home
always
to save
feel,
money
just
on
incompatible,
childcare
because
and
it'll
stuff like
always
that.
cause the other person to feel, oh, like I'm paying more, I'm contributing more, I'm working more.
I was gonna say, I think there's a bit of nuance there. I'm in a polyamorous relationship where I make significantly more
Of
than my
course that
partners.
dude's in a
One is RBT,
polyamorous
so they work, minimum
relationship.
wage.
Of course, the rich dude with all the nonsense is going on is the polyamorous dude.
Working for schools, working grueling hours
Okay,
with kids with
I'd probably do the
disabilities.
same
And so it's
for
a
him.
very hard life for them. And we've been together for over 3 years now. And there's never been a sense of me putting myself and my income above them or using that as a, hey, I'm going to lead the household and I'm going to make the decisions on my own because I'm the primary one bringing in the significant, revenue into the household. It definitely comes down to the relationship itself because they knew me when I was working for minimum wage jobs. And so because of that, just because I'm in a place now, tomorrow I could have nothing. I know that the love would still be there and a relationship would still be strong.
Oh, that's kinda
so
sweet,
while
though.
there can be definitely situations where an income, inequality would impact a relationship. I think it speaks more so to the depth and the strength of the relationship itself rather than the inequality being the main driver for any sort of issues in that relationship.
Have you never felt that, it's
I would
just
like
kind
to
of
point
unfair
out
you're
that in
putting
the
so
first
much
10
in
minutes of
and
knowing this
like,
guy, I
I'm just
found out he was
genuinely-
polyamorous.
Not at all.
Isn't that
Because
how
I've
that
been in
works?
relationships where I was the one who was working at Chick-fil-A making like $9.25 an hour, and I was like, my girlfriend had like a $60,000 job in DC, and I was like, oh my God, like thank you so much for like taking me out to dinner or something. And so that mentality of that reciprocity of like, if I'm going to be there for you emotionally, you're helping me with my finances. We're in this together as a partnership.
If you're just
That's what's
checking
really
into
carried those
this-
relationships through, and I've never again, I know that everything could disappear tomorrow.
He's a rich
so there's no feeling
polyamorous
of,
guy.
"Well, I'm doing all this. Why are you not putting in as much effort?" Like they're working super hard, and so just because they didn't have the same connections or opportunities that I had means nothing to the fact that they're like worth less or something to me.
To piggyback off that too, for me in my relationships, I've always made more, and it didn't really tend to bother me. I think people are driven by passion, and
I wonder what
not
these guys
all careers
do
pay the
for
same.
work.
But if the person I'm with is really passionate about
Sensational.
what
Thank
they're
you
doing,
for
I
the
admire
follow.
That speaks a lot to me because ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to be like so rich and successful to where like my wife didn't have to work if she didn't want to. My kids could do whatever the hell they wanted to do. And so I kind of did that with my ex when I was thriving. Like we didn't have kids. Like I got an episode for that. If you believe, you know what I mean, right? But not. We didn't have kids. But it was just the fact that my ex didn't have to work, and I helped put her in that position. So that made me feel good. I think a lot of people in relationships, there's an ego thing with it. So like if the man ain't making enough money, he feels less than a man, and then he treats his girl a different way. And then
Most people's
that
ego
creates
get in the way of a lot of
or his
things,
girl don't
so-
respect him or treats him a different way,
including
and that
making
creates
money.
problems. I think as long as you're doing what works for your relationship, like old boy said right here, right? I think that's what matters most.
It's a cultural issue.
It's also like an antiquated approach, right? Like what is the term, trad wife or something?
Traditional.
Yeah,
You
like,
gotta love them trad
traditional.
wives. Who doesn't want a good
Yeah.
trad
I
wife,
don't even
man?
care for it. Like I don't,
Yeah.
like bro, like I don't. In all my, I've been in 5 different committed relationships. But my whole thing is, I don't expect my girl to cook for me. I don't expect her to clean for me. I don't expect you to
What do you
nothing
expect
for
her
me
to do
except
for
be
you, my
yourself.
guy?
And as long as like we good, we good.
No, I think what you're touching on is that, and what you've touched on as well, is there's all these different ways that relationships can work, and I think they can
Old
work
lead,
in
thank
every
you for
way.
the follow,
I
man.
want a different relationship than what you want, but both can absolutely work, and there are pitfalls for both too, and you just have to avoid those pitfalls. Of course, yeah.
You know, I'm married, I have 2 kids, and I would say have more of a traditional relationship, and I love it, and it's wonderful, and I wouldn't trade it for
Who
anything.
doesn't want a good
But I
trad
know that
wife?
what
You
works
tell
for
me in the chat
doesn't
comment.
necessarily work for everybody in this room.
I don't know about you guys too, but like, so in the relationships I've been in, I have made more than my partner, but if they did make more than me, I would be stoked.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, that'd be a
Right,
lot of
who-
money,
who
dude,
would
because
get
you're
mad
fucking
about that?
I
rich.
will put on the maid dress and I will mop the floor.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
I'll be the coolest house husband ever.
Yeah, it is an ego thing.
Untenable. You think it's a bad take?
Can I get you anything, honey? Like, would you like me to take
You don't
your
like
shoes
trad
off, give you a
wives?
massage, whatever you need.
I kind of love spoiling my wife and my kids. I mean, partly because I grew up, I mean, my mom was making $10 an hour raising 3 kids. So the fact that now I'm in a position where
Rags to
I
riches,
can,
baby.
spoil the people
That's
that I'm
every
with,
rich
I kinda
guy's
love doing that.
story.
I know I'm not going to be able
They
to
were always
spoil
poor at
her
one
with,
point in
like,
time,
a million
right?
diamond rings and stuff like that, but I can
Never
spoil
had
her
any
in
help.
other ways. I can make dinner for us. I can plan things for us.
There's balance, so someone could be supporting financially, but someone else is supporting emotionally. And I think as long as you're aware of that balance, that could be like a secret to a healthy relationship. But if that balance kind of fades out in the dark, then that's when,
Yeah, in my tradition, we have a very strong belief that like marriage is like a fortress. It's like, as you're one pillar of it, your wife is another. And in America, we have this conception of like love marriages. You marry people you love. In Islam, we have a much more like deeper sense of that, in the sense of like it's not just love. it's family ties. Like
always
your family,
gonna
your-
tie back
their
to
family
his
are now one
religion.
unit.
Families are getting
And
married.
so you have
his
like multiple
upbringing.
pillars, and then you have like, if you're religious, right,
guess
you have like this
that
ethical and
makes
moral
sense.
compass that aligns with the other, and that's another compass. And then, like, can you benefit each other in knowledge as well? So there's many other pillars. So if one breaks, there's another to stand on.
Becoming rich is easier now than it ever has been.
Absolutely, the barrier to entry is so much lower,
I
especially with the
grew up
internet.
pretty much at the poverty line, so the opportunities that my mom had were so
Free education
limited
on the internet, you guys.
compared to what the opportunities that I have today. And you know, I was able to, I mean, frankly, make millions.
Your
and millions
growth is
of
crazy to
dollars in my
watch. Yeah,
20s
man.
Because of
I've only been doing this for about like 2 weeks, so I really appreciate the support that you guys have been giving me. And you guys being here makes a big difference. I do like talking to myself, but I like talking to you guys more. So thank you for being here.
all the opportunities that we have here in the West and in the in America, and especially in modern times, where if you just zoom out, a lot of those opportunities weren't available. You know, even just like 50 years ago, it would be different.
Yeah, to piggyback off that, I think not only is there opportunity, but the internet has just enabled us to learn anything we want.
I think the fact that you can
Exactly.
just be making
YouTube
money off of your
University,
laptop
baby.
just anywhere
I've
in
built
the world
businesses
is
off of
revolutionary.
YouTube.
I think there's
40
been
hours a week watching
a bit
YouTube
of an
videos,
explosion
tutorials and shit.
of non-ethical ways to make money. I feel like that's been a big thing in recent times. Making money off the backs of others has become easier than it ever has been, I think. Like, you can just start a podcast and just like
Nation,
on
thank you for the
women
follow,
whole
man.
time, and you'll
Appreciate
just,
you.
like, blow up and go crazy. I think like in late stage capitalism, there are so many exploits and things
You can always
do,
watch
and
my
that's
shit on
I'm
YouTube,
not
man,
saying
if you
guys
wanna
have done that
rewatch
specifically. I
things.
don't know your stories, but like
Just so you know, Vanishing.
you can be a landlord and just start charging exorbitant amounts of rent.
Medical,
That's why
thank you
it's
for the
so
follow.
unaffordable
Appreciate
to
you, buddy.
live, especially here in California. Like, there are so many evil ways that people can make money that I think it's easier now than it ever has been if you have sort of sketchy morals.
Is a landlord always an evil way to make money to you?
Honestly,
Oh, that dude's a
not-
landlord for sure.
Not always, but
What are
I
the
would
chances
love
that
to
guy's
see
not a
society
landlord?
Move away from this, from housing being a form of investment.
So I am a real estate developer.
Yeah. I bet
And
most of them
I
are.
just
Have real
bought
estate.
a piece of land to build a house. The piece of land just for the dirt, $735,000. Just the permitting, just like literally the fee that I had to pay to get the right to build on that property that I own, 110 grand. It's
Gross.
challenging
Disgusting.
to offer affordable housing
So
when you're
expensive,
already
guys.
$800,000 deep and you haven't even put shovel to dirt.
I don't put as much blame on the individual as I do on the systems. I really
I
wish.
would love
Oh,
to back
he's
you
a-
up on
he's a-
that. So
he's
actually,
a-
I've
looking
pretty
at the
strong
bigger
thesis on this.
picture.
So like I bought property and stuff before, and I've realized like the system just favors the rich, and the reason for that is because
Sure,
of
yeah.
interest.
Yeah, it
Like,
does.
From this, once again, I tie this back to religion often, but like in Islam, it's like you're not allowed to mess with interest. And the reason for that is because it favors the rich in a way where it pulls away from economic gain from society. And it's like, hey, because I have $100,000, I can pull $1 million of leverage. Well, if you only have 10,000, you can only pull 100,000. And now what's happening today is like these companies like BlackRock and these big institutional holdings, because they already have trillions of dollars, can leverage trillions of more to buy more houses, rising the prices, rising the interest rates for
Okay.
everyone.
That's fair.
And you guys suffer the most.
And it incentivizes the most fucked up practices.
Yes.
Like the more you can charge, the higher interest rates you can have, the more you can do, the more you can exploit, the more you
Well,
can
the
steal,
more money you
the more
have,
you get.
the more money you'll make, and eventually
Yeah.
you become the bank. And that's what rich people have become, you know. And I really hope that I never kind of go down that path. So it's something that even
I
as
bet
us, like I
you
think
really
when
do
you make
hope
money, like you'll see a lot of
that
your
you
friends
don't
kinda,
make
like,
a whole bunch
you,
of fucking
like, you
money.
can make a lot more money if you make
Yeah.
money. And like
you're
you
the
have
only
to
one.
really control yourself. That's why I also believe that making a lot of money is actually a curse in a way too. Like there are pros. Yes, you can have a lot of nice things, but
Bro.
you also have a lot more options. A lot
Position
more
of
options
privilege
for
right
bad
there.
things. And they might not be clearly bad things, like taking a loan on something bigger, or like they're not inherently bad, but it's like they can hurt someone on the back end, and I just don't believe in that.
I don't necessarily see interest as evil. I mean, there's a cost to debt, right?
Yeah,
There's
but
like
he's
a
talking
time
about his
value on
religion
money,
telling
as we
him
learned.
that. I don't think he personally
But I
believes
do
that.
think, to your point, I think a government, that's where a government's duty is to step in and kind of put those guardrails.
Like I'm not, it's hard not to sometimes, but I do my best not to ever put the blame on the individual, because any individual is not going to be able to change that system that encourages this stuff.
When people learn like to utilize credit in America, I don't know if they even have credit in other countries or if it's similar to America.
They do, but America is by far the biggest credit lender in the world.
So that, right? Back in
For sure.
2019,
We also have like the
nobody
biggest
ever taught
GDP
me,
in the
like,
world,
how to
pretty
go
much.
about building credit properly, right? But in 2019, I had friends that was doing drop shipping automation, like Amazon automation, right? So I had a friend, they was all running stores. So she was charging $8,000 to get
you talking about,
into the
Vanishing?
scheme, but I didn't
Who's
have
wrong?
8,000 at the time.
Which one?
So I started researching
The rich
credit. I
guy or
asked
the
questions from
poor
all my
guy
little
in
rich
this
friends
context?
on Facebook. I went on YouTube. So I did research. I went a different route. I got 3 unsecured credit cards for $1,500. I learned about authorized users. But then I think it was within 3 or 6 months, I was able to get 32,000. And then like a year and a half later, I got over 100 grand. That was from having 0 credit. So the thing is, if people actually research credit and learn how to—
Yeah, dude, it's not that hard to get credit cards. They want you to have credit cards. They want you to be in debt, and they want you to pay these 30% interest. That's the whole business model. That's what they want you to do. And if you don't know how to use a credit card correctly, they're going to get that money for you. But you can also game the system, and you can get hundreds of thousands of points worth thousands and thousands of dollars for free, as long as you pay off your statement balance every month and you don't pay any interest on that. But like, most people can't do that, and that's why they can do that for the certain people who are credit card people. Most people are not credit card people. And having $100,000 in credit cards is not a flex. That means that you are basically, if you use that, you're screwed, unless you got tons of money.
build it properly, it's easy to get money. And the cool thing about credit is, if you invest and you fuck up, you could just let it go to collections and dispute it all out
Don't
anyway.
ever
You
do
shouldn't
that.
think like that.
No, hold on. Let me finish.
Absolutely
let me
not.
finish.
There's
I know
someone
you
that
shouldn't.
suffers at the end of that
No,
system. So.
I understand. What I'm saying is though, right? Go about it the right way. Be responsible. Pay your credit, because don't fuck up intentionally. But what I'm saying is, it's easy to get the money to invest if you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you don't—
It's so, sorry, just to cut you.
Go
It's
ahead,
so easy to get the money that people will dig themselves in the hole because they see money.
Well, I agree with you.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, there's a difference between good debt and bad debt.
Of course.
So I was using my debt.
Yeah,
for
and you're talking about—
investments. I wasn't just
Yeah,
buying,
but
like,
that's
credit cards, though?
that's bad.
I was using the credit cards and then
See,
loans.
dude, that's
Stupid.
rough, dude.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Don't ever do
I
that.
agree. But
What are you investing in that makes sense?
Well, that's the thing. So I was okay. So like, for example, I remember like
Yeah.
Amazon drop shipping, right? I was making money on cashback. So the thing was, I was making money and I was paying my bill every single month. So I wasn't just buying like Beats by Dre or dumb
But where
shit.
did it go wrong? Because, I
So-
mean, with respect,
Oh, yeah,
you're on the
I'ma
other
tell you,
side now.
I wasn't like up with my debt. I was paying my bill every single month.
Please,
I've
let
been
me
day
know. I'm
trading
really
since
curious.
2014. I wasn't
Need to
like
know.
broke. Even like last year, I had my biggest trading day. I made $161,000 in 3 hours. But the thing was, I was making money. I had passive income, and I trusted some of my rich friends, right, into a bad investment that they ended up rug pulling everybody. And I currently have a lawsuit trying to get my money back. So that's why I ended up over here. I always wanted
Okay.
to be on that rich side for this episode. You know what I mean, right?
I feel like your story kind of epitomizes like my worldview on this question, is that it's easier to make.
Bro, you're like a teacher that makes 10K less a year. I don't think that's fair to you, bro, because you're teaching people, you're upbringing our next generations. But at the end of the day, you like, how do you only make $10,000 in 1 year?
Money now
As a
because
teacher,
there's
what
so
are you
many ways
teaching?
of
Where are you
passive
teaching?
income, and that's kind of what I don't like about it, is passive income doesn't really benefit society. You're making money off the work of others instead of off your own work, so you're not really
That's not always true.
helping anyone except yourself.
That's not always true. No. Because you can do something like post something online and host something online and advertise that thing online, and then have on the back end somebody else producing that product and shipping that product for you. So now they're making money on the back end. The person's getting the product that they want on the front end, and you're making a cut because you got them to buy it. That is where everyone benefits. So the shit that he said just didn't make any sense at all. And that's very like, I guess he has a very specific example in his mind and he's generalizing that into everything else. So that doesn't make any sense.
We're talking about a societal trend, and you can't disprove that thesis or that premise by citing your own personal story. You have to look at
Anecdotes.
actual data. And when you say it's easier to get rich now than it ever has been, who's getting rich? And if you look at the data, it's the top 1% of the population. And I just
Which is,
thought of
by
some
the way,
statistics.
not that hard to get into. The top 1% of the people in the world, I think you need to make like 40K. The top 1% of the people in the United States, I think you need to make like 350 to 400K. So it's like like most of the people on this poor panel, like at least half of the people except for this guy right here on this panel, maybe this guy too, are one percenters as far as the world's concerned. I wonder if they have that perspective. Even this guy here, he's a one percenter as far as the world is concerned. He's just not a one percenter in America.
Statistics, which would help my point, which is to say that, you know, the largest increase in the poverty rate from one year to the next happened in 2021 to 2022. The majority of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. It's a very precarious life for most of us. And we live in a world where 3 Americans own more wealth than 150 million other Americans, the bottom half of the American population. Another statistic is 8
That's interesting.
people
I didn't know
in the
that.
entire world own all of the wealth, own more wealth and power than 90% of the bottom
Really
half
cool,
of the
actually.
population. I'm sorry, 50% of the bottom half of the population. That's from Oxfam, and that is 4 billion people. So 8, and this is in 2017, mind you. This is 8 people in the world own more wealth than
And the
4
poorest
billion
half of it.
people. And
Okay.
you know, I just think
That makes sense.
we live in a
Let's go back.
predatory
That goes back to exactly
political
what I was
economy,
saying earlier.
and-
Is that
yeah, sure.
if you make more than $40,000 or so a year, then you are a top one percenter in the world. Did you know that, guys? Did you know that you guys are rich compared to the rest of the world? Crazy. Castor, thank you for the follow, man.
I got a 2-part question for you, right? Sure. First part, do you believe in anybody in this half moon shaped circle is better than you?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so if we have personal experiences, that
Shit,
we make
everyone on
different
that
kinds
panel is
of
better
money,
than
do
me.
you feel
I'll tell you
like
that
could
much.
potentially happen for you as well if you apply yourself properly.
I think that it's
My
not
streams
about,
brighten your day.
an
Oh, thanks, man. I
individual answer
appreciate you.
to a,
Glad
a
I can do that for
systemic
you.
question. We're talking about institutions, okay? The part. I'm sorry, just to you know, think about, you know, you're talking about the housing industry, the real estate, you know, how expensive it is. And, well, the reason for that is because the housing industry has been monopolized by pretty much one corporation, Blackstone, which bought up all the housing, all the private property.
0.06.
And raised all the rents. And so you have to compete with that now. And
Third
so,
largest in the
that's
world
that's
at
why
less than
there is no
1%.
affordable housing anymore. The homelessness has never been higher. You know?
I want to say I agree with you.
I don't own a
worldview,
home, I'll
like,
tell you that much.
completely. The
I don't
reason
know
step
how
forward
people
for
afford
this
to own a
question
home.
Is those systems.
A matter of fact, you guys, I don't know a single person that's my age that owns a home that isn't house poor, that doesn't think that, you know, they're struggling because they own a home. If you own a home and you're not struggling and I'm in my early 30s. So if you're in that range or younger and you own a home, maybe a little bit older, 40 or younger, tell me, like, are you okay? Are you okay financially? And how much, like, you don't have to tell me how much money you make, but like, you know, what percentage is it?
Systems you laid out make it easier for individuals to rise. We cannot all. It's not easier for everyone to make it.
Individuals that have
Yes.
already benefited from generational wealth, from every advantage that.
I think there are a
you
lot
could
of like
probably-
scamy ways that
Absolutely,
poor people
and I'm
can
not
also
saying,
get up
you know,
there,
if you
though.
got into
there
Bitcoin.
are a lot of like honest ways.
If
but
you had gotten into Bitcoin in 2014, yeah, there's a lot of teenagers that are becoming millionaires, but that's
Yeah.
that's such a small sliver, and it doesn't disprove. That doesn't disprove the entire thesis.
It is a
of
small
this.
sliver,
When
isn't
I
it?
hear that question, right, the hardest thing I have
Crypto
for me
market
is,
sucks right now, you
I
guys.
understand not everybody can get rich, but I truly do believe in America, everybody has the opportunity to be rich. Now, you may have come from a different background where it's harder to come up, you know what I mean?
Well, of the 2 people in question, you have had a harder time, no doubt.
Wait, because my past, though, why not, right?
It's because of your race. It's because of the color of your skin.
Oh my God. Here we go, chat. This guy has literally just told this man who had not talked about this at all that he's disadvantaged because he has a certain skin color and he's a certain demographic. Like, that was really, really tough. I love this guy's face. I really want to see what he had to say about that. Jesus.
That is because racism is a systemic problem in America.
I don't see my skin color as a problem because at the end of the day, though, I still educated myself, I applied myself, and yes, I came up before I got scammed last year, you know what I mean? So as a black person who's at a disadvantage, and let's just say that it really is a disadvantage. That never held me back from doing all the shit.
I'm
that I
not
wanted
saying
to
that
do.
you don't have your own personal, optimism for, bootstrapping yourself. I'm
He's
saying you're
generalizing
facing
again. This is
institutions
generally.
that are designed to undermine your livelihood, and that is because of the color of your skin.
I would have to
And I
disagree about
acknowledge-
today. I would say historically in America,
What about the color of this guy's skin? He's the richest one there. What about the color of this guy's skin? He's making over $200,000 a year. Like, why?
certainly,
There's-
I would say in 2024, 2025, when
Bro,
it's coming out. I mean,
the hell's going on?
Again, we're all here. We're talking.
Yeah.
I've been able to make $2 million a year since I was like 28. There's really nothing special about me. I can spot opportunity, and I think that if
That's
if
a
what you're
special
saying
trait
is
to
true
have,
and I
man.
was subject to all. Like I've never felt that the
I
color
can
of my
find
skin
you
is a
millions of
barrier.
other people that do
Well, I'm
not
sure.
share that.
Yeah, I'm
personal
sure, but-
anecdote, you know
but
what
what
I'm saying?
I'm-
And that's the point of the thesis.
but what
That's the
I-
point of the premise.
No one's saying that this guy's wrong. They're just saying that it's irrelevant directly to the people he's talking about. Like, this guy said a generalized statement and then specifically pointed at this other guy and said that this is your problem, without asking this guy if he felt like that was his problem.
It's all about belief at the end of the day. Go
And
ahead.
also,
Omar.
I don't
remember
think so. I
the
think it's the
prompt
material
was it's
conditions.
easier today to get rich than it ever has been. There was a point.
He's
where
already
someone who looked
wearing
like
clown
me wasn't
colors,
even
chat,
allowed to buy a
so we
house.
know where this is
That's
going.
not true today. So for me, getting out of that circumstances, building wealth, same thing. Even women weren't allowed to have a bank account in their own name till like
Sure.
the 70s in some states. That now they can, right? And
I
so
think
I
that
think it's easier today.
I guess for him, what is your
gonna
kind of
do this
dream
real
state
quick.
then? Like if it's not today, what period in history is
I
the
believe
easiest?
that we live in a class-based society. There are workers and there are owners, and we are defined by what we do for a living. And if you work for a living, you're in the working class. And if you accrue capital and passive income, like you all were saying, by the hard work of others, then you are a capitalist. If you own the means of production by which workers work those means of production, you are exploiting them. And that's the only
That's not
way
exploitation.
that
You create jobs for them. If you have a company and you put up all the money and all the risk, and then you treat all of your employees really well, and they really love their job and they love working there, and you pay them a fair wage, is that exploitation? He's basically just generalizing so much, and he's saying that everything is bad. Like the whole system's corrupt, and there's systemic problems and all this stuff, and that all may be true. But the fact of the matter is that he just has really bad takes. This guy is literally a clown. Here, we're gonna do this just because I feel like it. We're gonna go here, here. Let's go here. I'm gonna make this really big. Is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Sorry guys, I don't know what I'm doing. Thank you for bearing with me. Okay, now you can draw him a little clown nose because he's being a clown. That's him right there. Anyways, back to the video.
millionaires are allowed to propagate their wealth.
Let me ask you this: would you consider anyone with a 401k exploiting people?
No.
Because they hold stocks
It's
that
investments.
are ownership of a business.
Yeah, that's also
Bruh.
an instrument of class war.
The 401k is an instrument of class war.
Yeah, that's the idea that I mean, look at what BlackRock does. I mean, they're gutting workers' pensions. They're gutting your retirement funds. It's not the people that have a 401k. It's the people that are doling out these 401k plans. They are the ones that are taking away from the workers.
So the reason why I
Clown.
disagreed with the prompt was primarily based on something outside of finances, which was time. And so a lot of things that I heard was, oh, everyone has access to a laptop, everyone has access to a phone. It's easier than ever with online sources like drop shipping or crypto
Good
or
point.
things to get rich
don't
in
have the
today's
time, then you
society.
can't do anything.
With the shrinking middle class, more and more people working paycheck to paycheck, not as many people have the time in the day to utilize those resources or even learn how to use them. For example, like I grew up with a military background. Like my parents were both military. I grew up working for like Chick-fil-A and as a paintball referee. So I was working a lot of minimum wage jobs, but my parents, who were upper middle class, gave me the opportunity to learn how to use a computer in my downtime or take a couple months off from working to be able to learn how to do social media, which is what I do now. And now I have the opportunity to make millions, and so it'd be easy for me to sit here and say, wow, it's
Rock
easier
Strike,
than ever to
thank
make
you for
money
the
in
follow,
today's
man.
society. But if you even
Welcome
look
to the,
outside of
movement.
America as a country and at the global economy as a whole, there are so many millions and millions and millions of people who are sitting here going, what do you mean it's easier than ever to make money? I'm watching the upper 1% get richer and richer, and I'm still here struggling to pay.
So I think that this whole time thing. I think that you not only do you have to earn money, but you also have to earn and plan out your time. and you have to create space to have time to do things. So if you don't have times to make the money, step one is to create a situation in your life that allows you more time. That's all. So like if you have a whole bunch of expenses and a nice car and a nice home, and those are expensive, so you have to work, so you don't have time, then buy a cash car. Take the bus. Work from home. Make some kind of changes that allow you to do those things. And now you can come up with a million reasons, one after the other, of why those examples that I just gave are something that only privileged people have or that just won't work for everybody. And I will ask you for specifics, and you will give me some specifics, and I will tell you either A, they're either so nuanced and so low of a percentage, so far from the average that you're just reaching, or B, I can give you a solution to that problem. So go for it.
Pay rent and make food every day. And so that's why I was like, I don't think it's easier. Like, sure, there are opportunities and a lot of like more people have the opportunity, but overall, like there's a lot of inequality there that makes it more difficult than ever.
The largest transfer of wealth ever in human history has occurred in the past 40 years. $50 trillion has been basically robbed from the working class, the bottom 90% of Americans, to the top 1%. And that's another example of the disparity, the inequality, economic
Whose fault
inequality.
do you think that is?
It's the fault of the people that are in charge, obviously, the people that control the economy and subsequently control the government. It's the
Everyone else's fault, right?
1%. If that is materially, that is their function in society, to be parasites
Not forget you
upon
guys.
the majority of the
That's him.
population.
There's one
Clown.
thing I have to just disagree on.
Sure.
As far as wealth inequality goes, there's no question. Today, it's more exacerbated than at any other time.
Yes.
There's people that have hundreds of billions of dollars, and there's people that have nothing.
Right.
So that is absolutely true. I think when I sort of zoom out and I look at the history of the world and the fact that we all have electricity and
Yes.
running water
Yes.
and like heat in our house, if we're lucky enough to have that, I just think I can't look at a time in history where there was a better time to be alive. I mean, like, yeah, times are hard now for sure. And I don't want to sound condescending as someone on this side of it saying that life is easy, because I know that life can be hard and it was difficult for me growing up. But there was a time in history where you get your hand chopped off for like stealing an onion. like that
We
doesn't
do
happen
live
anymore.
in a
Like, at least
great
not in
time.
America.
It's
I
hard to
think
argue
both
that.
can be true. I think, the base standard of living can be higher than it ever has been, while also it being harder than ever to escape from the place that you were born into and the kind of like economy that you are a part of.
I don't think it's like you have to pick either or. I think it's easy to be poor and it's easy to be rich. Like it's like kind of like this.
That's what I agree
That's
with
like the thought.
100%.
And sorry, go.
If it was
So
easy to
pick
be
your
rich,
struggle.
then everybody would be rich.
Good take.
If everybody could
That's
be a
the thing, but,
billionaire,
like,
then there would be no billionaires.
If it's easy to get a
not
six
true.
pack, which it is, it's just consistency. Why doesn't everyone have a six pack? I don't have a six pack.
Here's the thing too, like his analogies about the six pack is there are people who genetically do not have the ability to have a six pack, and that's how I see it. There are people who
There's nobody on the face of this earth who can genetically not have a six pack. There are people who can genetically get a six pack better, but you can have a six pack no matter who you are. You can get a six pack no matter who you are.
just do not have the opportunity, do not have the resources to just be able to just make money.
I think not everyone statistically can become successful. You have to believe it though. Like if you're ever going to become successful, you have to believe it. But not everyone's going to, like even like the six pack analogy, right? You have to actually believe that you can get a six pack, even though you can't.
I think that's the part that I really agree.
Everyone can get a six pack, which I mean, I get the argument, so I'm not gonna like dwell on that, but it's a bad analogy.
Agree with, which is why I stepped forward. I feel incredibly lucky to be in the West, to be specifically in America, to be in modern times. We have so much opportunity in America. I'm not saying that it's not complicated or challenging or that times aren't tough. I'm just lucky to be here, and that like this is. Again, just zoom out in the West, in America. It's such an incredible time to be alive.
This is such a fallacy because, like, yes, of course, the United States is the greatest, most wealthy country in the world because we've robbed the entire world.
100%. Yeah, I'm not disputing that at all.
Yeah, no, I'm saying you're not. I'm just saying you're accurately saying we have the best opportunity in the world, and I'm just saying those are ill-gotten gains.
There's no
So you're just gonna give up and not play the game because it's ill-gotten gains?
such thing as an ethical billionaire.
Of course, he starts to walk up.
You cannot become a billionaire without exploiting people in the process. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, it's impossible to work hard enough to be a billionaire. You will have to extract the surplus labor value from other people. It's not possible to do that at all. Like, I think the closest, we have a weird almost exception, but not really exception in modern society with celebrities, where people actually like just prop them up and do that, and they're not necessarily exploiting others themselves. And so that's like the only thing I think where it could.
No, that's not true, man, because celebrities produce content that people enjoy and watch, and so they pay their hard-earned money to watch that content, and that's exploitive.
Be
Do you have an
questionable
example,
by your
like a
logic.
specific example of someone that's a billionaire?
No,
that might be?
that's
Okay.
my thing, is that
Yeah.
they don't reach billionaire status, because
Right.
billionaire is so
Yeah.
insanely high.
Right.
I think you could be like 100 millionaire ethically, maybe through that specific mean, but billionaire is so astronomically high, it's impossible to get there without exploiting others. I look at someone like Taylor Swift, who I'm a huge fan of, love her, but
You do
her
look like a
capitalist business
Swiftie.
practices are
Exactly.
insane.
Yeah.
We're charging like $40 for little things, and we're exploiting people in all these other ways to like make these things for so cheap and do this and
Yeah, you become a billionaire
This dude's
by investing,
exploiting us for attention right
and you
now.
don't, it's not through hard work. Nobody becomes a billionaire
Because
through
we're just
hard work.
throwing
You get it
the-
through exploiting people.
Throwing the
You
term
know,
around.
you know what the difference between $1 billion and $1 million is? It's about $1 billion. I mean, nobody really understands how much wealth is $1 billion, and to think that there are people in the world that have hundreds of $1 billion and
Not
they're on
surprising.
their way to becoming trillionaires. The disparity has never been greater, and I don't believe that there's any way you can acquire $1 billion. And
They might be right, honestly.
And I've yet to hear
They might
a
actually
strong
be right.
argument in the opposition.
They just don't have a good argument for it.
If you're putting people in a position to where they can, I guess, provide for the life that they want and the people they care about, so they can accomplish their goals through the opportunity you provide for them, and you're able to accomplish your goal at the same time, why is that a bad thing?
What I'm saying, as long as you're respectful and you take care of the people that you hire, it's not a problem.
The extraction, like you are exploiting their labor in the sense that their labor is worth a certain amount. You're not paying them what that labor is worth.
You're
If they
assuming that you're not paying them. You're assuming that people don't pay good wages for certain things. And what is a good wage? A good wage is an above average wage that allows you to live the life that you want. So if people are able to live the life that they want off of the income that they're making from your company, you are paying them a good wage for them. And it's their responsibility to make sure that wherever they're working pays them that wage. That's their responsibility. So if there's people working for you that are making the money that you pay them and they're living the life that they want off of that money, it is not exploitive. And if you give them good working conditions and you are taking care of your employees and you're not a total piece of to them, piece of shit to them, then everything's going to work out. You're not exploiting these people. And I would say that a lot of people out there feel like they enjoy their jobs. And he said that he enjoys his job. You know who's freaking exploiting you, my guy? The teacher that makes less than $10,000? You wanted that job. That job made you happy. You told me earlier in this video that you would accept that and that you were okay with that and that you and your partner were cool with that. So what the fuck is going on here, dude?
generate $30 an hour for you and you're paying them 20, that's exploitation if you
No.
are taking that.
Not if you spent over 30% of the money that they're making creating the opportunity for them to make that money. You're not even breaking even, my guy.
$10 and putting it in your pocket.
But then how do you pay for the lights, like the cameras?
I think
Overhead.
that surplus labor value, I think workers should have a say in how it's used. And
No.
that's my biggest problem, is that the workers
No,
don't have
because what you find is that a whole bunch of idiots vote to do stuff that's going to remove their opportunities for their job. They're going to run the company into the ground. You don't have 1,000 presidents. You have one person. There's a reason for that. And there's a reason why it is like that. It's the only way it'll work. Because if it worked another way, there'd be other ways of doing things and they would be doing them right now successfully, but they're not.
To say.
Is there a sense where we could maybe raise the minimum wage to a certain level to where it's not seen as exploitation?
The very concept of earning a wage is exploitative by design.
Oh, he's a
because
socialist.
You could be, like he said, you could be producing all this value as a worker, but you're capped.
I see what's going
stock in
on.
the company? So it's
The
pretty
clown
common
is
in
a
the tech place to
socialist.
get restricted stock,
How does a company raise the shareholder price of their company? How do they do that?
Make more revenue.
They
Usually there's traditional financial metrics like revenue but in general it's
Okay,
more
how do
people
they
are buying
generate
and
revenue?
By selling
by
more,
selling goods and services.
How do they make goods?
using human labor. For the
There
most
you
part.
go.
I never saw that my life
That wasn't revolutionary.
was worse off. If the
That
guy
was dumb.
who started a restaurant
Are we
paid
serious
me
right
a
now?
wage to work in the restaurant and he made more than me, it never bothered me. If the owner of the restaurant was like, yeah,
there were
Yeah,
slaves.
honestly, whenever you become like a shift leader or a assistant manager at a restaurant, you will probably make less than the servers do. If it's a good restaurant, you'll make less. It happens all the time. That's why there's people who are denying promotions at their jobs because they feel like they don't want the stress to make just either a small amount more or take a pay cut for it with the empty promise of an opportunity later.
1830s
like,
that didn't think they were being
all the time.
exploited as well.
but except it was my choice.
But also-
it was my choice to go get that job and earn a wage.
Yes,
and if I
You've got to
didn't
say
want
the
it, I could
system
quit.
forced you to
Well,
do
There's
it.
but,
choice there,
Also, the
yeah.
person paying you to do that was not a billionaire.
Another boring
A
streamer? You're
billionaire
so
takes
sweet to me.
that to the most
Untenable. You're so hot and
extreme,
cold,
extreme,
buddy.
extreme level where it wouldn't be taking $1 here of surplus labor value and doing this with it. It's extreme, extreme greed, extreme wealth hogging to get to that level.
So I personally know many billionaires. One of my closest mentors, he used to sit 2 desks away from me. His company IPO'd. Currently, it's valued more than Lockheed Martin, Nike. It's called AppLovin. It's worth like $158 billion, right? This is the most kind, genuine person you'll ever meet. Ever since he's made money, so he
Yeah, it's
he,
'cause
like,
these
has a
people don't
crazy
have
story.
exposure to
He
these
started
kinds
working
of
when he was 14,
individuals.
15,
They don't
made a
know.
ton of money.
They're
And
guessing.
it was the same thing. Like my story is very similar, where it's like I started working at 15. I was paid $8K a month, and I actually loved it. Not just because of the money. I knew so I was making someone way more money, but it was the fact that I could learn from them, like learn how to get into that position. So the system
Opportunity,
never bothered me in
baby.
that sense, because I was like, I can be that system. I can beat that system.
If there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire, where is that limit? Can you be an
Abuse
ethical billionaire?
space.
Can you be an
Thank you for the
ethical 100
follow.
millionaire? Like where
Velosa,
is the
thanks for
point
the
at which
follow,
suddenly
too.
I'm now unethical?
That's a great question. I couldn't give you a number. I think $1 billion is way past it, though. I don't think it's anywhere near $1 billion. I can't give you a number, and I don't think every
Homie can't
millionaire
give
is
us
an evil
specifics
person,
on
10
anything.
millionaires is an evil person.
I have a friend who's a solo founder. So he's in the in the tech space, and he on freak accident got really into AI super early, like years ago, right? And him by himself, he's sitting with his computer, he's like in his 20s, and he codes some shit, and he creates a company, and now it's suddenly IPOs, and it's worth $1 billion. He didn't do anything. He didn't go out and say, you know what, I'm going to make this $1 billion, and I'm
why is he
gonna
unethical
go over
now?
everybody in the process. He's doing something that he loves.
I think the problem is that these people are arguing with idiots, and the idiots don't know what's going on, and they have preconceived notions because they read headlines on social media articles when they're scrolling and their downtime because they don't have anything better than to do. And I'm not saying that that's a problem. You can do that if it makes you happy, but like, don't come onto these shows and tell people things that just is dumb. It's just dumb takes. They
And
just
now
have bad
suddenly
takes.
the
They
world
just don't
says,
know.
and the stock
They're
market
ignorant.
specifically says, your
It's not
thing is now
malicious,
worth
they
$1
just don't know
billion.
anything.
Now does suddenly my friend now is an unethical person and he has to like, hang himself? Like, what does he have to give
Yeah.
away his money? Like, he's evil. Like, where's that point?
It's easier to make money if you're a white man.
Here we go. The two clowns
We're making
are
a
coming to
broad
hang out now.
statement. Obviously, it's not. There are people that aren't white that make a lot of money, but I think statistically, generally speaking, it is easier to make money if you are white. It's easier to be advantaged by these.
Do we have anybody in the chat that disagrees with this? No?
Institutions that govern public life if you are a white person, specifically a white male. But goes back to systemic racism. I mean, the institutions are, capitalism has given way to, like a byproduct of capitalism, in other words, is white supremacy. And we're in the United States
I'm
of America.
sorry. What did this stupid idiot just say?
Capitalism has given way to, like a byproduct of capitalism, in other words, is white supremacy. And you know, we're in the United States of America. We've had, you know, this country was founded upon slavery and the genocide of the Native Americans, the slavery of African Americans.
Okay.
And
that's true.
That was by white people.
Yeah, I think when you look at the statistics,
Okay.
you see certain.
I think that is true, but I also think that throughout time and history, the slave trade was like any other trade: the cotton trade, the coal trade, the stone trade, the bread trade, the slave trade. They were all just trades. Like that was just a natural part of human society throughout years and years. It didn't matter what your gender was, what your race was. There was black on black slavery. There was white on white slavery. There was Jew on Jew slavery. There was Greek on Greek slavery. Roman on Roman slavery. Slavery everywhere. Everyone's been a part of it. The most recent slavery that we were exposed to was this slavery, black slavery. And it's all awful. It's all awful. And he's right. It was founded on that. But like, come on.
Demographics succeeding more than other demographics. And you can either look at that and say, oh, there's something inherent about those groups, which is just racism. Or you can look at that and say, there must be some societal factors that lead other groups to excelling more than others.
And another point is there have been studies made on, you know, the eligibility of people to acquire a bank loan, for instance. And statistically speaking, it's far easier to acquire a bank loan if you're a white person than a black person. And that's just one of the examples. We have I mean, it's easier to get a college education if you're white. It's easier to make money if you're educated. Most white people, you know, have a clear, you know, it's all about equity.
I do want to make one thing clear about my worldview, though, is that...
I'm going to join you guys after. Yeah, that's okay.
For sure.
Okay, what's going on? Did this guy change his mind about it's easier to make money if you're a white man after listening to two clowns discuss it?
Is that I think on the left, like the left of politics, sometimes it comes across very defeatist when we talk about this, and I never want to be like that. I don't want to say a person of color can't do this, can't do that, because that's also literally just racism, and people on the left do that a lot, sadly.
But the prompt
you can succeed, but it's just, it might be a little harder, and that
yeah, me neither. I don't know if this is genius or insane. It's probably just crazy, though.
I just think statistics show certain groups are more successful.
I think one thing, too, I wanted to add that brought me out here. I don't know that it's tremendously more difficult, but it's definitely more difficult, and I think stats show that. And a big thing to me is so much of personal wealth is your home, and there's a huge like racial net worth gap, and a lot of that is because of like access to property ownership. And that's a big thing that I think, you know, stored capital creates more capital.
Right. So, I mean, we come from a society that, you know, segregation was legal, you know, 50, 60 years ago. I mean, that's, you know, just a few generations ago. We're still feeling those reverberations, you know, and, you know, white people you know, want to protect
King, thank you for the follow.
Their property, their wealth, wasn't there the whole thing of white flight, you know, in like the 60s, or, you know, as soon as society was desegregated, white people basically said, we're going to take all our capital and move out to the suburbs, and we're going to defund public institutions. We don't have any responsibility to them. And,
Purple Sparkle,
you know,
thank you for the follow, man.
I just think it's pretty fairly evident at this point that, you know, systemic racism is an issue, and, you know, to acquire wealth, it's far easier if you look the part.
Do you think that will change as time goes on, though? Because I think we are for sure trending the right direction, and that's why I hesitated to come out here. But then bringing up the points of like historical wealth and then wealth building off of historical wealth.
I think it's headed in the right direction for sure. I mean, I think
I'm white and I'm
I
broke.
think I believe anyone can absolutely succeed in America. Some people will have a harder path than others, but I believe anyone can. Sadly, I don't think everyone can. I feel like that is contradicted by capitalism, but I do think anyone can succeed despite their circumstances.
All right. So
Maybe
I would
like
like to point out that only white people agree with this statement, and the only black gentleman, I believe, I don't know this guy's ethnicity, and I believe he stated that he's Middle Eastern, or at least he is Muslim. I don't think that means he's Middle Eastern, but he looks the part. I don't know,
back in the
but
day,
like
I don't really
they
believe it.
disagree.
And like, I guess it goes up based off of personal experience. One thing that I personally hate is this whole victim mindset that a lot of folks in our community especially have. I hate that with a passion. Cause like as a black dude, how I talk, how I present myself, some people in the comments gonna talk shit. I already know. You know what I mean, right? But my whole thing is I've had so many jobs and we were
That's just
speaking
because people like
about
talking shit.
unemployable and whatnot,
Look at my
right?
chat. All
But
y'all
if you
talk
look
shit.
at my resume, it's crazy. Like I've been a flight attendant, I've been a truck driver, I've been a perfume salesman, I've been a street performer on the Las Vegas Strip. I used to work background in porn. As a black dude who's done a whole bunch of shit, it's hard for me to think that I'm at a disadvantage when I've done more shit than the average person has.
I agree with you that everyone should have the mindset that they can succeed. I think that's something on the left that we don't communicate enough, is absolutely have the mindset that you can succeed, but that doesn't mean that these systems aren't in place.
And let's say the systems are in place, though, right? Because it was worse back in the day. But let's just say the systems currently are in place. I just think it's a belief factor. Like if you believe like, oh, I'm black, I can't do shit, you ain't gonna try.
The statistics tend to demotivate people, and then that causes lack of action. And it's like
Lack of belief?
It's like, for example, like I look at everything as like, I only look at the advantages, you know? Like I try to cut out the disadvantages that I have. Maybe I don't even have many, but it's like I hyper focus on like, okay, what advantages do I have and how can I use them? And that actually promotes to good action and good results.
That's on an individual basis, and I would agree with you. For sure, everyone should take what they got and make it better. We're talking about society as a whole, though.
I just think you should take that with a grain of salt, though, right? I think like it's like a lot of people don't take it with a grain of salt. Like I have friends that are like, you know, I'm gonna like figure it out one day. Like, you know, like it is what it is. Like, you know, you're rich. Like you figured it out. Like I can't do that. Like no. You know, like
Nobody's saying we should be apathetic about our situation, but we can recognize the material conditions of our society and the institutions that, you know,
of course.
But
I
govern
think
public life.
the way you beat that is like you focus on what are the advantages that you have and how can I act on those advantages.
Keeping in mind the year that we're in, unless there's something I don't know about, maybe that's true, there's no legal system that says, you know, you are prevented from this opportunity because of your race.
If anything, it's the opposite. We have the Civil Rights Act in 1964.
The fact that I see black people
And the
succeed,
DEI
lets me know I
movements
can
and
too,
stuff
man.
like that,
I
yeah,
might
sure.
be at a disadvantage, but I'm gonna grind it out and do my damn thing so I can get there too.
It's just like I'm trying to think outside of the bounds of just like this conversation where we're taking place in America, like looking at society as a whole. Like, you know, if I went overseas, like I'm going to be at a disadvantage to making money. Like we're not talking about being rich. The prompt was making money itself. And I think overall cultures, you know, tend to prefer their own. Like,
Never
and
thought
that's
about
just
it like
across
that,
the
but I guess
board.
that makes sense, yeah.
But I don't think that
can
means
agree.
that necessarily like it puts you at a disadvantage. But at the same time, there are certain advantages that I have because I'm white in America, and I'm very aware of that. But when it comes to like the baseline of just making money, when it comes to like, okay, being like super successful, like we can argue about, you know, systemic things that are holding people back and we agree and disagree. But just the baseline of making money, I had to disagree on that.
Being, you know, a white straight male in the United States of America as opposed to a
Futuristic?
black,
Did you just call my chat
queer,
chill? My chat is
female,
not chill.
you know.
Maybe at the moment.
What is the society
They're all degenerates like me.
set up? Who is the society set up for?
And even making it more personal, like when people are in positions of power and able to choose who they surround themselves with, they tend to go after people that look like themselves in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's why you see like such a large like boys club at the top of like the Fortune 500 CEOs. It's why they make such a big deal about like women in places of power and women who do these things. It's because by and far across the board, it's a lot, you know, easier for the guys to be like, that's a man like me. We have a background similar.
Dude, you know what? Like, I think America is such a
Yeah,
big
you have things in
country that
common and you
cannot
want to
just
help each other
generalize
out
that
because you like
rule
each other,
over
because you have
like,
things in
You
common.
know, small cities, small towns with different cities, different states, everything that changes like vastly.
It's a big country, but there's only two classes. You know, there's the 1% and there's the 99%.
I am happy.
I married my college sweetheart. We've
that's
been
sweet.
together for 13 years. I have a healthy son
Glad
and a
they're
healthy
happy.
daughter. And honestly, everything else is just kind of bullshit. Like once you have that, the people that you love are doing okay. To me, that's ultimate happiness. And there's nothing there's nothing else that I want other than that. So I'm very happy.
I would have said like you asked me this question like a couple months ago or like maybe a year ago, it would have been a different question. That's why I hesitated.
Yeah. It depends on who you're with. Yeah, I think that, like who
Who
you're
you're
with
with.
in the very
Guess that's
close
true.
environment is a huge factor. It's gonna
I think it has to do with whether or not you're struggling, whether or not you're barely keeping your head under the water or over the water or not, and if you have things in your life that you have to look forward to, and if you have hope. I think that is what makes you happy.
change
Is
that.
having what
But
you need,
I
finding
can
what
say that
you
I do live
finding
paycheck to
your
paycheck, but I know that I do something that I
what is it? Finding your enough. Once you find your enough and have your enough, then you can be happy.
absolutely love and I'm so passionate about. And
What do you do?
I'm a filmmaker. This year was when I just decided to study acting, and that was truly like that's my true passion, to be honest. Like I love shooting as a hobby, but to like how many people can go to work with a big fat smile on their face, you know? So it's like how many people can do that? Like, dude, I know people who've been doing the same job for 30 years, even though they're making an amazing paycheck, everything. They're like financially, stable, everything. They can go to Saint-Tropez and they just like, it's a beautiful life, right? But he goes to work and he's like, oh my God. Like, that for me is just like, no.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
no
so many
paycheck
people
is
that
worth
work
that.
jobs that they
Yeah, I
hate
would
just
agree.
because they don't
I
feel
kinda
like
do something
moving.
I enjoy on a daily basis too. I help sort of serve the underserved and work on an investing platform that anyone can use. And I just moved to California, so there's a lot to be happy about.
Same.
Yeah, yeah.
And I
don't-
teach,
Yeah.
and I love.
Wait, they had two of the poorest people on here with the most ridiculous things to say, and it's just the dumbest shit. The two biggest clowns on here, they're both teachers. Y'all, I'm scared. I'm scared for our future. These guys are teaching our children.
Love what I do.
Well, and to what you're saying too, it's really the people you surround yourself with. It's something like you're the average of your best 5 friends or something along those lines. So I've got a lot of good friends and close family.
Luckily for me, I don't have any friends, so I'm just the
and-
worst.
Yeah.
In the United States, I think we have a lot to be happy about and thankful for. Our homes are not being bombed by the U.S. military, so that's nice.
Yet.
That's huge.
That would be, that would be like kind
Yeah, I think what you said I
Yes.
just related to so fully. Like, I am fortunate enough to have my girlfriend who I love so much. We live together, we're happy, and we have a life plan that we're working towards where we're going to go
Bet
to
she's a clown
college
too, bro.
and get married one day
Guaranteed.
and have a wonderful family and have a wonderful life, whether we be at the top of the pay scale or at the bottom. We're going to make it work and we're going to be happy because, like everyone has said here, it's about the people around you. They matter so much more than anything else.
For me, especially like, in the last year or so, and the reason I said that it would be different if you'd asked me a little bit ago, I was, yes, working jobs that I loved, but a large part of me was committed to those jobs more than the rest of the other aspects of my life. So I was putting work over things, chasing a bigger paycheck, chasing a bigger payout, chasing a bigger accolade, chasing an achievement. And even though on the outside to everyone looking in, they were all like, Kai, you've made it, you're 22, you're doing all these cool things in social media, you're traveling the world, you're working with the biggest influencers, why aren't you happy? It was because there was a part of me that had put such a pedestal, or put money on such a pedestal at a young age of seeing it as this thing that once I have money, I'll be happy. And I had
Never
denied
true.
myself happiness. I had kind of kept prolonging it further and further and said, oh, when I get to this point, I'll be happy. Oh, when I get to this point, I'll be happy. And that was kind of the question that I was going to ask was like, if happiness was like more of a sliding scale, would
What do they
would
call
you say
that?
that you're 70% happy and
Destination
would
something?
money change that?
Having money it's a blessing, but it also can be a curse to the wrong people sometimes because they start asking these questions, and if they don't get answered, they kill themselves. Like that's what happens.
It magnifies your problem.
Because you're like, oh, I'll just keep making more. Like I never had like a bad problem with it, but I just like really asked these questions, and when I really internalized it, I was like, what is the metric for happiness? Like what decides if I'm happy? And I realized
Does
it
money
came
make
down
you
to one
happy?
simple thing.
I don't
It was
think after a certain
contentment.
point. I think
Like,
that's what most people
satisfaction and
say,
contentment.
especially the
And
ones
not
who
just,
have
like,
money.
with everything, but like if I died right now, would I be okay with it? Like with what I've done, with the time that I've spent, like the way that I'm gonna die, right? Not just about dying right now, like, am I dying in a way that I'm proud of dying? And when I really thought about it,
That's
I,
a
like
weird
2 years ago,
statement,
I was
I
like,
think.
oh, I'm doing this for money. And I had made this money, and I was like, okay, I don't want to do it for money anymore. Like, I want to do it for something else. This is not gonna drive me anymore. And I realized like, okay, cool, like I've gone to a scale where I can take care of so many others. And if I keep crushing it, I can take care
You think
of
so?
more.
You think the guy's
so
wrong?
that's kind of like the contentment where it's like, oh,
Who,
cool.
this
Even
guy
if
right
I don't
there?
ever
The
get
one
to take
talking
care
right
of,
now?
like millions and millions of more people, I'm in the process and pursuit of that, and I'm content with that.
I would almost say that I was happier back when I was working at Chick-fil-A and like being a paintball referee. Like, you know, sure there were like financial problems, but there was a part of me that didn't feel burdened down by like the weight of, you know, supporting so many other people. Like there is that, you know, responsibility when you become higher up in society and you like have more people that report underneath you and there's more people that rely on you for their well-being and their family's well-being and, you know, their financial, where I do miss that part. Like I'll sit in bed some days and be like, man, I remember when life was so simple. And so it's those things that get taken for granted that I wish I would have learned.
Responsibility
when I was
sucks sometimes, man. It makes your life harder. It makes your life more important, but it makes your life
rather than working on fixing
more
myself
stressful
first.
You know, I'm actually glad that the both of y'all spoke before I did, because I resonated with that so much, though, man. It was, you know, when I had like the bulk of my money, right? I gained a shit ton of weight. I didn't have to do shit. Like I'll just wake up to money. You know what I mean, right?
You lost your motivation.
Like, my ex, we was living together, and she used to say all the time, like there was times when I was laying, like I had gained a whole bunch of weight. I couldn't even see myself pee, bro. Like it was nasty. like legit. And my ex was like, baby, you gotta get out for your ass, go do something. And I was like,
that I got so rich, I got
I don't
fat.
have to do nothing. Like we good. You know what I mean? But the whole thing was, I remember one day, my ex taught me about macronutrients, and then I was able to get in the best shape of my life. And that made me happy. Then she took us to a salsa class.
Having a goal and accomplishing it gives you dopamine. Dopamine makes you happy.
And my happiness more
do
so
things that
comes
give
from
you
the
dopamine
purpose,
that are healthy.
The purpose of doing things.
Key to happiness.
You know what I mean, right? So although I don't have the bread that I used to have to do, I am content because I put myself out there and I make the most out of my situation.
Good talking to you, fellas.
Yeah, guys, that was a good one. A little bit long, a little bit challenging to get through, but honestly, a lot of the things that were said were pretty good. I like the little group hug at the end. Some of the things that they said, awesome. Some of the things that those two guys said, I think you know who I'm referring to. They're clowns. I can't believe they were teachers. Well, I hope that you guys are also very, very happy. But yeah. A lot of those bad takes, a lot of them was good takes. I did learn a couple things here, but not very much.